guys, what is up? My name is Megan and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. I hope you guys are doing well and staying safe, and welcome to today's video, which is a book wrap up for the month of January as well as a book haul. I will be combining both for the year of 2025 in hopes that I don't buy so many books that I need dedicated videos to haul them. We are doing good this month, so it won't be an issue. I will put timestamps if you're interested in only one of these two parts, so feel free to navigate as you please. Now, I also wanted to mention that I did put up a poll on my channel asking if you guys wanted my stats and goals check-in for the year to be done in my wrap-up, my monthly resets, or a video completely independent of those two, and thus far the answer has been to have it in a separate video. I will be trying that for the month of January, but feel free to let me know if you rather I incorporate it here or in my resets for the upcoming months. So today we're just gonna review the books, jump into the haul, and that's pretty much all we're doing. So again, timestamps down below and let's hop on in. So in the month of January, just quickly, I did end up reading 9 books. One of those 9 books is a DNF. However, since I read more than 50% of it, I will be counting it towards my yearly goal. And I do have 2 other DNFs. One is a soft DNF and the other one is a hard DNF. It's already gotten out of my house. So other than that, I did complete 9 full books, and I have a book currently in progress as well. I will start with the book in progress, move my way to the DNFs, and then we're going to chat about the books that I did complete. As you may have guessed, if you are a frequent viewer of my channel, the book I currently have in progress is Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. In the month of January, I read just over 200 pages and am loving this. As I have mentioned in my live shows and several other places, this book has been making me cry so much more than any other Brandon Sanderson book has so far. I don't think I have enough hands or fingers and toes to tell you how many times I've cried in the first 200 pages. Just the prologue itself made me bawl like a baby. This is the 4th book in the Stormlight Archives. I have been making my way through them, and these are the books that made me fall in love with Brandon Sanderson. So I will be continuing this in February. I really wanted it to be done, but clearly I have 1,000 pages left, so it's not happening. But I'm still proud of the progress, and I do want to keep prioritizing this. I'm just having a hard time with having Mistborn to read as well and just all the other books. But I'm really enjoying my time, and my prediction is that at the end, this will be my favorite read of the first era of the Stormlight Archives. The first DNF I have to talk about is a soft DNF. I just wasn't in the mood for this specific book, but I know I will eventually be, and that is The Language of Dragons by F.S. Williamson. This is a YA dystopian fantasy, and for some reason, when I put this on my January TBR, hadn't really clocked in my head that this was dystopian, and then on my live show, I read the first 35 pages, and I really enjoyed the world, and I think I'm going to enjoy the premise, the synopses and just the plot in general. I was all intrigued in the beginning, but this is heavy on the dystopian, people are dying, people are revolting, and I should have guessed it because it says ignite the revolution, so 1 and 1 should have made sense in my brain. It did not. However, January, Megan was not in the mood at all for a dystopian and for something so heavy, because in the first 30 pages, someone dies, and I just wasn't in a mind space that was willing to read such a book. I don't know how to explain it, because obviously the Stormlight Archives are dark books, but it just doesn't hit the same. I already have that relation to the characters and the world, so I feel like I didn't mind it as much as just being thrown into something and them already dying, and just dystopian in and of itself is something I really need to be in the mood to read. So this is going to be a soft DNF for now. It's staying on my shelves. I'm not unhauling it, but it's not gonna be something I read in the upcoming months, I know, unless I get the sudden urge to read a dystopian. So it is a for later book, but as I said, love the introduction of this. The audiobook I listened to at the same time as reading was fantastic. I think I'm gonna have a really great time with it. It's on BookBeat for those of you who use BookBeat, and yeah, so it's a for later book. Then my hard DNF was unfortunately the Whisperwicks, and I say unfortunately because this book was my book club book for the Sprinkle of Magic book club, which is the monthly middle grade book club I host, and obviously I will not be doing a review of this book because I don't like to talk very negatively of middle grade, especially on my channel. I don't like to promote it in that way. So I did read a couple of chapters of this. I did even try the audiobook, and I was like, trying to force myself to keep going, but this book was not at all what I expected it to be. I thought it was going to be kind of a weirder / darker middle grade book that incorporates fantasy, but not in the way it did. Like, this book just made no sense to me. We follow a young boy, and the premise of this is that he ends up going to this world, and he's there because, like, he followed either, like, it's a bird or something, and then he learns about this magical world. But when you start this book, it's essentially a boy talking to this crack in the wall, and this crack in the wall convinces the boy to go to this person's house, but then the crack in the wall obviously is not as it seems, and it's kind of like an evil force. And it was just giving bad, creepy vibes. I was not in love with the writing. The characters were not my favorite at all, and the decisions that were made, even for children, in my head did not make sense. So I was not having a time at all. I hated the audiobook. I just was like, what am I reading? I did not feel like reading that, and I knew to my core, I knew right away I would not like the characters. They did not make sense to me. I did not have a good time. The writing felt off to me. And again, I am very much in the unpopular opinion there because this book was like a Waterstones book of the month. It has a special edition. It's getting all the royal treatment. It has more than a 4-star average on Storygraph. So I know it's probably me who is the issue, though some of you guys have told me on the Discord and on my community tab that you've also DNF'd. So I'm not sure what is happening with this book and why the verdict is kind of all over the place, but just know it wasn't a Meg book, and I will not be picking that one up. It is gone from my house. I have sold it already, and we're not going to talk about it. Moving on to my other DNF, and that is my book that I had for my self-destruct for the first episode, which I will link down below. So I'm not going to talk much about this book, but just know that I read Impossible Creatures by Katherine Rendell. This is the book I got 50% of the way through and was like, no, this is not for me. I am not having a good time. And this is another book I was like trying to gaslight myself into liking. For what reason, I don't know. But again, this one, like the Waterstones book of the year for the children's story, it's getting all the royal treatment. Again, it has a super high rating on all the platforms, but it's not for me, and my issues are very similar to my issues with the Whisperwicks, though I did enjoy, like, if I had to rate them, Impossible Creatures would be a higher rating than the Whisperwicks. But Impossible Creatures, my issue was that the characters made no sense. So in Impossible Creatures, we follow this young boy who, ever since he's been like a child, and even like a toddler, animals always gravitate around him. They are very intrigued by him. They follow him around, and he was just told, like, you know, it's weird, but whatever. But when he goes and lives with his grandfather, he learns that it's actually in the family, and the reason for that is that they are keepers of this portal between our world and a other part of the world that has all the magical creatures like unicorns, phoenixes, all of them are in this location, and so they are keepers between those worlds. However, our young main character, who was not supposed to know about this, encounters this young girl who has gone through the portal when it's not supposed to be open with this baby griffin, and she's like, you gotta come back with me to this world you know nothing about because someone murdered my family member and I'm alone with this griffin. And without thinking twice, he's like, bet, jumps in the portal and goes. And from there they make a series of really stupid decisions, but sometimes, like, and I say this all the time, and I talked about that in my self-destruct video, I don't mind stupid decisions in middle grade books when it makes sense for the character and it makes sense for like the story as a whole. The characters in Impossible Creatures for me were not fleshed out enough, and it just didn't make sense. There were no justifying like reasons why everybody was acting bananas. Even the adults in this make weird choices, and they just, none of it felt real. And My issue was, you're introducing me to a story that includes like griffins and unicorns, and I believe the griffins and unicorns more than I can believe the character and its motivations, and for that I was like, I am not sold, I am not having fun. Everything was making me angry and I felt aggravated by the choices that they made, and I was like, you know what? We're just gonna call this a day. Again, I tried the audio. I tried convincing myself that like it doesn't matter, they're children, whatever, but then when the adults started making dumb decisions, I was like, I'm out. Like, none of this makes sense. Nothing is explained. Though I will say the world building and the animals themselves is what kept me going in that 50%, and I really enjoyed it. So if that's what you're going into this book for, like the animals themselves and the world, it's a fun time if you don't mind stupid characters. And again, very unpopular opinion on this book, I am well aware, but I just did not have fun. Now, going into books that I've actually finished and read, the first I'm going to mention very quickly because I have a full sit-down review that should be posted before this video for The Secrets of Underhill by Callie Wallace. This is a January 2025 release. It was one of my most anticipated middle grade books, and overall I ended up giving this book 3.75 stars. I really enjoyed the characters and the world building in here, but my issues were mostly with pacing. This story is about a young girl named Nick who, along with her mother, care for these huge ironwood trees, which in this world those trees like propagate magic, and it is a story that deals with environmentalism, racism, discrimination, inequality. Those are the themes present. It's kind of a fantasy mixed with a mystery. If you want to know more about that, I will leave my review. It's all spoiler free up in the cards and description for you guys if you want to hear more of my thoughts. The only romance I read this month was an arc, as was The Secrets of Underhill, and that is Revenge Puck. And this is a very short romance novel. It comes out, I think, in February, and it's a dual perspective romance. It's a hockey romance, and the synopsis is basically this girl was hooking up / dating this hockey player, and he basically dumps her just before like the championships, and in order to get back at him, she goes and tries to convince his rival from another team to pretend like they're dating. So she's like, can you just take a picture with me? He's known to like never date, not have girlfriends, and because he also hates him, she's like, fine, we can take a picture, and it kind of spirals and they become fake dating. Like, they aren't dating, but they are dating, and it's them falling in love. This is like a 250-page story. It's very much like insta-love because the story takes place over like a week. But I personally had a lot of fun. Is this my like holy grail recommendation? No. But for fake dating, which is one of my favorite tropes, I eat that up like candy. I loved it. I liked the side characters. I will definitely be continuing with this series. Like, I was super invested in the plot line of the side characters. I enjoyed both our characters. Our main female character has been like mentioned in a lot of reviews because she's a character that has a lot of insecurities around like her like self-confidence and all those things, and I think it was handled well in the sense that it was very realistic. Like, when you're someone who is quote-unquote average dating these like hockey players that are in the media and everything, and obviously the way she was dumped, she kind of feels like she's not enough, but at the same time she knows that she didn't deserve how things ended with that hockey player, and so she talks sometimes about her insecurities, and some people were like, she is perceived as whiny, they don't like her. I personally didn't mind it. I actually found it quite enjoyable to see main characters who aren't like la-di-da, I am perfect, and the main male character I absolutely loved. I would have liked this book to be longer, but it was a great palate cleanser. I had a lot of fun. I would give this one like a solid 4.25. I just really had a good time. To start the year off, I actually also read Why You Should Read Children's Books Even Though You Are So Old and Wise by Catherine Rundle, and this I read. It's a super short essay. It's like 60 pages long, and I read this to kind of back up my claims that I was talking about when I made my Why I Read Children's Literature as an Adult video, which came out in January, which again, I'll leave somewhere for you guys, but this was very short, very much talked about the author's experience as well as the current image and state of children's literature in the like present time and how it's perceived, and how authors who write children's fiction are sometimes kind of not ostracized, but are judged and think of as lesser, and the genre in general is struggling with that. And so I read this in order to create my video, which I really loved doing, and I need to like get back and chat with people on that video, but I had a lot of fun putting that together, and I'm really pleased with how it came out, because I do think I expressed myself well, and that was thanks to this. So if my video sparked anything in your brain, if you want to know more about children's fiction, this is a very small essay. It's easily digestible. Highly recommend. Which is ironic because Katherine Rundell is the author of Impossible Creatures. So I read 2 Katherine Rundells and I had very different experiences. Though Katherine Rundell, even if I didn't like Impossible Creatures, I cannot deny she does a lot of incredible things for the middle grade community, and I will be trying more of her works. It's just Impossible Creature didn't work, but I think she is a fantastic author. Then we can go and talk about the middle grade mysteries I read this month, and I'm showing them at the same time because this one is co-authored and this one is by one of the co-authors, so it's like by the same author. We have the Highland Falcon Thief, which is by M.G. Leonard and Sam Sedgman. This is the first in the Adventures on Train series, and this was actually a reread for me that stemmed after I finished The Clockwork Conspiracy. Now, the Highland Falcon Thief is about this boy named Harrison, and he goes on this train called the Highland Falcon Thief with his uncle to kind of see it off. It's last journey, and his uncle was invited because he writes about trains, like he's a journalist that writes about trains, and Hal goes with his uncle, who he doesn't really know because his mom is having she is pregnant and will deliver the baby, and so Hal is kind of stuck going there with his uncle, and he ends up going on this journey on this train. So you learn a lot about trains, but there's also a mystery of someone who has been stealing jewels, and our main character takes it upon himself with his friend to solve the mystery of who is stealing all this jewelry. And it is an incredible time. The audiobooks for this are fantastic. I really love this. This really stands as a middle grade mystery. I've talked about it in my January diaries. I really enjoyed this. This is like a 4-star book. It's not an all-time favorite, but I think the series as a whole is something I'm really going to enjoy, and I did reread this in order to go and continue with the Kidnap on the California Comet next month. But I also read The Highland Falcon Thief after reading The Clockwork Conspiracy by Sam Sedgman. The Clockwork Conspiracy is a story of a young boy whose dad is the main horologist, which is the person who takes care of clocks for the Big Ben, and at the beginning of the story, his dad actually goes missing when they are resetting the clock. And our main character goes on this adventure with a friend that he makes to find out what has happened to his dad. Now, I will say I really enjoyed this book. This would get like a 3.5, 3.75. I liked it a little less than Adventures on Trains, but enough that I will be continuing with this series. I think my issue is I probably just didn't connect to the characters as much as I did with Harrison and his uncle, but I really enjoyed it, and I think the mystery is very well done. I liked the pacing of this book enough. Like, everything for a mystery was perfectly well done. I think it's my personal enjoyment and my attachment to the characters that were a little bit lesser, but I still highly recommend this book. I talked about it in my middle grade recommendations video that I did recently. It really stands on its own. I really enjoyed it, but it's just a little less good than the Adventures on Train series for me. And then we get into my 3 favorite books of the month. I'll start with the reread, and that is Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. This is the first in the Percy Jackson series, and I read this because I'm hosting a read-along for Rick Garden this year. The live show for Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Lightning Thief, is on February 10th, I believe. I will mark it on the screen if I'm wrong. The live show is already set up on my channel if you were planning on participating, but as I said, this was a reread for me. It's probably my 3rd or 4th reread. I did tandem read this with the audio, which is chef's kiss. It's fantastic. I love Percy Jackson. There isn't much more to say. I will be having a full spoiler-filled review going out the day after the live show, and obviously we will discuss all our thoughts at the live show, but I did read it. It's a 5-star read for me. I love Percy, I love Annabeth, I love Grover, the story, the pacing, the action, the comedy. It's a whole banger, and Rick Riordan is obviously the king of middle grade for a reason. Absolutely love this. And then I read 2 of the best middle grade sequels I've read in my entire life. Which are these 2, the Midnight Orchestra and Amari and Despicable Wonders. If I had to say what like the best book of the month is, I would hands down have to go with Amari and the Despicable Wonders. I talked about this in the vlog. I mentioned that it's probably going to be in my top 5 or top 10 books of 2025. I can call it already, I just know. So I'm going to keep this for last and talk to you guys about the Midnight Orchestra first. The Midnight Orchestra is the sequel to the Mystery School of Musicraft, which I talked about way too much on my channel in 2024. This series follows a main character named Amelia who is going to the Mystic School of Musicraft, and what that is an academy for students who play music. They take the most prestigious music students. And why is that important? It's because in this world, music is magic, and the more you hone in on your music, the better you get at magic, and therefore the more you can contribute to society, the more you can do things, obviously the more power you hold. And so our main character has always dreamed of going to this academy, and she ends up going for odd reasons that are explored in the first book. And this book blew my socks off. This is, and I can't believe I'm saying this, like 100 times better than the first book. It's phenomenal. The plot was like so much fun. We are introduced to another character, which if you've read the first book, you should probably like expect to eventually meet this character. I did not see it coming. When this character showed up, I was like, and then the whole ordeal with the Midnight Orchestra had me like flabbergasted. It's hard to talk about this without spoilers, but just know that the powers, the friendships, the plot lines, the stakes, the darkness, it's all so much better in this book. I cannot wait to get to book 3. Obviously book 3 is audio only. I wish I could have a physical copy because these books are stunning. I love them. I love having them on my shelves. It's one of my favorite series ever now. I have read the prequel, the first book, and this, and as I said, audiobooks for this. Listen to the audiobooks. Even if you tandem read, I tandem read, listen to the audiobooks. They are fantastic. There's music in there. It's perfectly done. The narrator is perfect for a main character, and obviously as the series progresses, they are audible only like stories. The third book is literally non-existent in physical format. It's only an audiobook, so it's better to start the series in the way in which it ends. Could not recommend this series enough. And book 2, like if you liked book 1, you're gonna love book 2. And if you loved book 1 like me, you're gonna be obsessed with book 2. And the final book I have to talk about is Amari and the Despicable Wonders, and it's hard to talk about because this is book 3 in the Amari and the Night Brother series, which if you don't know is a middle grade fantasy series, and it's essentially kind of like Men in Black mixed with Nevermore, mixed with Percy Jackson and a bunch of different things, where we follow a main character who at the beginning of book 1 is looking for her brother. They are black and have been told by the police several times, like, your brother probably got mixed up in bad things, but she learns quickly enough that that is not true, and she is invited to the supernatural world where she becomes an apprentice, like supernatural investigator. It's kind of like a summer school, and she learns that she has incredible powers, and the story unravels from there. And Amari is such a story that is perfect when it comes to the fantasy elements, but it also talks about injustice, discrimination, racism, and it does so like in very obvious ways with like Amari being a black girl, but also with Amari and her being someone who has powers that is very different than the rest of the population, and how people perceive her because of that as well. And it is amazing, the friendships, the powers, the like supernatural world itself, and the way it functions, and the jobs of people and the departments, all of it is splendid. But this book, if you've read this book, hit me up on Instagram if you want to talk about it, because I don't know anybody in my life who has read Amari, so it's hard to like vent about how much I love this book. So yeah, absolutely obsessed. I think I mentioned this in the vlog, I'm not sure. B.B. Alston has this way of throwing you back into book 3, even if you've read that. I read this like a year or more after book 2. But it's not hard to remember what happens because he throws in reminders of the plot line and like how the world works without slowing down the story. Like at the beginning of this, there's like a car chase, Amari's in a car, and you still understand what's happening while learning about this new plot, but also being thrown like, hey, by the way, this is kind of what happened at the end of last summer. And it's just flawless in his execution of throwing you back into the world while not taking any, like some authors take like a third of a book to remind you what happened, or they just don't do it at all. And he has found the perfect balance. B.B. Alston is an auto-buy author. Obviously we're getting Amari 4 and 5, but I hope he doesn't stop his writing after that. I will be buying whatever he writes. I have my Amari shrine. I have 3 copies of Amari and the Night Brothers, one which is signed and personalized by B.B. Alston. I have 2 versions of book 2. I need to start collecting book 3. Like, I am obsessed with Amari, and this one is the best in the series so far. My order is definitely 3, 1, 2. Book 2 hit a tiny slump, but nothing major. It was still a 5-star, but this is like a 6-star read. It's bloody fantastic. Please read the Amari series if you have not already. Moving on to the book haul portion of this video. Technically, I bought 3 books in January, but I'm combining what I got on the last days of December after filming my last book haul of the year with what I got in January. So let's start with the December purchases. First, one you've already seen is The Language of Dragons by S.F. Williamson. This is the Waterstones exclusive. It has beautiful sprayed edges and it has end papers like this and a beautiful hardcover. I've talked about this book already in my wrap up, so I'm not going to go much more into detail, but it's a beautiful copy and I hope I end up loving it. Then we had, I think this is like the November Afterlight, but it came in December. This is Make the Season Bright, and this, I'll be completely honest, I forgot to skip. I did not want this book. I'm not the biggest fan of Ashley Herring Blake. I know a lot of people love her in the community. She writes a lot of female romances, which this is one of them. This is a Christmas story, obviously. The book itself is beautiful, but I don't really want this in my collection. I'm not sure. I'm probably just going to keep it and see if I read it next Christmas. But like, as I said, the book itself is stunning. We have end papers. I'm just not in need one of more Christmas romances, and again, I'm just not the biggest fan of the writing of this author, and just I don't really care, and I try to only buy special editions that I really care about, but it's in my home, so I thought I would show you. I've been on the ball though with skipping and stuff with Afterlight now that I have this project that I am dedicated to do on my channel. Then we have Better Than Revenge by Casey West, which was a December 31st release, and this is her newest YA. It's about this girl who wanted to do a podcast, but I believe her ex-boyfriend steals her idea, gets on the podcast, and so she takes revenge by working with like his enemy and nemesis. I don't really know, but that's kind of the plot line. I'm just heavily involved and interested because it's Casey West, and this cover, gorgeous. I didn't read it in January. There's still a little time left, so I might, but ultimately failed that goal. And the last book, I also have Stealing for Keeps by Rebecca Genshak, which is somewhere else in my home than the stack of my haul, but that was also a December 31st release. It's the first book in a YA romance series. It's her first foray into YA. It was published by Bloom, and it's a soccer captain and this girl, I don't know what sport she was playing, but I know she's in a boot right now and she can't do sports, and they kiss as a dare and it sparks things, and he's like obsessed with her and trying to get her to date him. It sounds phenomenal. I've started that one and I'm really enjoying it so far. And the last book of December is The Unexpected Tale of Bastien Bolive by Claire Povey. This I've been interested in a while, but I really bit the bullet because it was $6 on Amazon. And this is one I'm like unsure if I'm going to enjoy because it is historical middle grade. Like, it's not set in this time period, but usually in middle grade it doesn't bother me as much. So yeah, I don't remember the synopses. I think it's like historical fantasy, and I've been eyeing this book for like 2 or 3 years now. Finally got it. Going into January and what actually counts towards my financial goals for book buying in January, we have Mistborn, The Well of Ascension, and Mistborn, The Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson. These are the UK copies and were fully funded by Facebook Marketplace. I will talk about that more in my stats video, but just know these two combined were, I think, $58 Canadian with like shipping, everything included, and they were fully funded by Facebook Marketplace sales. So I sold some books to buy some books, so I have not failed at any of my rules, and these I bought because I need them for my Mistborn read along. So these were like sensible purchases because I do like need these copies, and I do have the audiobooks for books 1 and 2 right now, and will eventually get the audiobook for book 3. These are books 2 and 3 in the Mistborn series. As I said, Brandon Sanderson, it's his year on my shelves. They're going to be completely decked out with his books. So I got those, and then I also did, just like one or 2 days ago, buy the Owl Crate subscription for romance. It is a quarterly subscription. There are no skips, so you get 4 books a year. They are romance special editions, and I got my invite and decided to bite the bullet and go because it's quarterly. So currently my 2 subscriptions are Afterlight and Owl Crate Romance. I will be making the same kind of videos with Owl Crate Romance as I did plan to make with Afterlight, but I did not renew my Afterlight for January. And the Owl Crate book actually is the March book, so I'm not gonna have it physically for a while, but it is paid and it's taken out of my January budget, which again was fully funded by Facebook Marketplace purchases, so there is no deficit in my plans. I also didn't use any money for Afterlight, so it's perfect. So overall, I probably spent $100 on books, but I will get into that in my stats video. So that is it for this long wrap-up slash book haul. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions, concerns, let me know down below. Leave me the book emoji in the comments if you made it this far, and I'll see you very soon with another video. Bye guys, happy reading.